Hello, and welcome to the YBMB Show, the Your Body Means Business Show. Those of you who follow us, and there are quite a few of you now, will know that we run this show 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We do it live at midday, so I think it's just about midday. And Mondays, we do body, all things to do with body and tips about getting a strong body. Wednesday, we talk the same thing, but on mindset. And Fridays, we talk about business. And sometimes I'm lucky enough to have a guest who can sort of help me really bring out a particular aspect of those things. And so today being the business day, I was very pleased when Gary Jackson agreed to join us. So Gary, thanks for joining us, and a big hello to you.
Yep, hi Angela.
And because Gary has got, I want to talk today about ideas, and as the title says of the show, you know, how to bring ideas to reality. I'm sure all of you sort of sitting there listening will have had business ideas, and you know, if you really think, a lot of people anyway can get ideas if they really put their mind to it. But there's a big difference between having ideas and implementing. On the other hand, some people are really great implementers but can't get the ideas. And I wanted Gary to come on because he had a fabulous idea. And not only did he have the idea, but he then brought it to fruition as well. And that idea that I'm talking about is the Hailo app. For those of you who used to get black cabs, you might remember the Hailo app, where you could, and it was prior, I certainly remember it as prior to Uber, where you could actually sort of call a black cab. And that was the brainchild of Gary Jackson, and his partner. So Gary, so thanks again for joining us, and tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up starting Hailo.
Yeah, so my background's actually going back to, I brought up in East London, great part of the world, but probably a rough part of the world as well. So I think a lot of the stuff that I do goes back to how you're brought up as well. To be quite,
it's a bit cool now though, isn't it? Shoreditch and all those places, a bit edgy.
Yeah, I think you've got a place called Hackney Village.
That's it, yeah.
I used to always laugh at when you was a taxi driver, because I end up being a taxi driver. When someone says, like, take me to St. Wretham, or instead of Hackney Village was always a funny one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so originally that's how I was brought up, and my entrepreneurial started with a company called Taxi Light. So I was a black taxi driver, and I was driving around, and then the iPhone come out, which sort of opened up my eyes to the world. Because one is it gave me access to notes, so it was easy to write stuff and memorize stuff doing that. And taxi drivers are entrepreneurial anyway, because you have to earn money, and I think that's what entrepreneurial is. A lot about it is trying to be successful and make money at the end of it. So I started a thing called Taxi Light, which was doing journeys and utilizing our dead mileage coming in and out of London by doing fixed pricing. So it was virtually, and I always go back that was before Uber. So before they had that idea, we was building something similar-ish.
And to sort of put it in perspective how different that was, I mean, I remember when I first got my very first mobile phone, and you know, they were great big brick things, and the only thing you could do was speak on it, and then the next thing we were able to just about text, but you know, it was a nightmare. If anyone goes on Netflix and tries to search something, it was a bit like that, wasn't it, the texting? And it took quite a while to get to the point where we had an iPhone and these things called apps. It was very different, actually, the thought of creating an app in those days.
Yeah, most definitely. And even the technology then, although you had apps, the back end of that was obviously more difficult. So with Taxi Light, what we was doing was jobs in and out of London, but the after process was like sending someone an email with the driver's phone number. But at that time, that was like revolutionary, because then the customer linked straight to it. And that's what then led on to Hailo. Is eventually you need a better platform in the background. What I tend to do is I come up with an idea, and then I build things in to make it better. So I look at technology, I look on what's going around me in the world, and then I'll go, oh, I like that. How can I implement that into the idea I'm currently working on? So even with taxi, like we was doing journeys in and out of London, fixed price, very basic. But even the idea we done taxi sharing. And at that time, I was playing poker online. And if anyone's played poker online, you have a table. And then when it gets full up, it disappears. My brain then went, actually, how does that relate to a taxi? Well, it's exactly the same process. So we built a taxi sharing system on a completely different technology idea, but brought into where we are. So that's my way of thinking, is how do you bring stuff in to make an idea even better?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a minute, because there's different ways of sparking off ideas, and we can talk about some tips on that a bit later. What I wanted to firstly explore a bit though is the process of thinking about, you're driving along in your taxi and you think, oh, hang on a minute, that could we could do this on a different platform, and this could really work. The difference between thinking it and then doing it, when someone and no one else has done it, presumably you didn't have a big team of developers sitting there waiting to do it for you. I mean, how do you do it? How did you plan it? How long did it take? What was that process? Because there will be people sitting there now who have an idea, but they're not quite sure how to. Oh, I've got two little dogs who just walked in, but they're not quite sure how to bring it to life. So, what was the steps? What was the process to do that?
Okay, so we'll go back to 10 years ago, how I did it, and then maybe we could talk about how things have changed now as well to the future. So the way I did it was, I had an idea, and I'm quite good at writing down all the possibilities and how it works and what happens.
But you write it down, do you, as you think it?
Yeah, so I would write it down like in a document, and I could write down, okay, so what's the competition? Is anyone else doing it? Is this idea already out there? Never be feared by it if it is out there. Actually, that's a good thing, because it means that people are thinking about it. But then I think it's bringing people in. And what happened was I'm an ideas person and a creative person and probably a strategy person of how to do it. But then you need people to come in and help you. And so what I did was, I was always speaking to a guy who we was taxi drivers, was out in the morning. We was always talking about ideas. I got him involved. His name's Terry Runham. And he was more the operational guy. So I could do the thinking, and then it would be, oh, okay, how do we do this operationally? And then he would help do that.
And that makes sense. But how did you know that at the time, that that's the sort of person you are? Because many people, they will be sort of the entrepreneurial thinker, ideas person, like you said, or they may be the implementer, but you don't really know which one you are until you've tried and failed at things. So do you? So how did you know that about yourself?
So you know what? So I don't know if I always go back to it's probably on my side, it's the problem solving. I think if you're an idea person or a strategy person, it's I like problem solving. And that goes back to my previous job before that, which was, I was a photocopy engineer. And being a photocopy engineer, my biggest task was, how can I get in, fix your photocopy as quickly as possible, so I could then go outside and walk around with my mates who did the same thing.
Yeah.
So I become very good at problem solving. What I didn't realize though was I found it very easy. So I would solve a problem, but the next person who come in didn't find it really easy. I think that's a really hard thing in life. And it probably took me about 8 years to realize that I was different to other people.
Because you were thinking, oh, it could be this, it could be that. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Yeah, I definitely think that is a trait of entrepreneurial people, because you can actually look at something and you can, know nothing about it, but you might, and you may be talking to a group of experts and you say, well, did you try this? And they may look at you quite blankly and say, oh, no, and so that's I think one of the things that you know about yourself.
I wonder if it links to being, which is quite important, is being a taxi driver. I mean, if you've ever been in a black taxi driver, within the first 2 to 3 minutes, I can suss out, or I could suss out. Now, I'm not saying every taxi driver's like this, but I think a lot of them are, is where do you work? What's your personality? Do you want to speak? Do you not want to speak? And you know why you do that is because it was always the game of the customer service game, which meant at the end of that journey, it was the difference between getting the meter fare and getting a few quid on top. Even down to, I knew that putting my arm behind my back and opening the door for someone brought them to me, which is a lot easier. And I suppose it was just being nice to get that end of it. So it was all entrepreneurial. It was driving down the street and going, is there a job left, right? Not everyone does it like that, but that's how I always was. But I never realized it. I just thought that was the norm.
Yeah. And so you intuitively, you realized that, you know, to get this Hailo app, you didn't know it was Hailo app at the time, but to get this sort of idea off the ground, you realized you needed some people with different types of skills. And then obviously that's the next thing, is how do you find them? And also, how do you get buy-in? Because you've got to convince people as well that it is a good idea and that they ought to spend their time, and maybe you're not paying them at this point. They're just you're wanting to get them involved. So how do you do that?
So what we done was I forgot that there was Terry, and then I brought someone else in who was because I always thought to myself, you need to get drivers if you're going to do anything. So we had to get drivers. So I brought in someone called Russell Hall, who was quite prominent within the taxi industry. And I think what happened was we clicked, and we was quite fortunate. We was always like-minded. And I think putting effort in as well. We was always 24/7, always talking about it, etc. But the journey then went from, we did back then get a couple of tech people in and go, can you build us this app? And they started building it, and we give them equal shareholdings, etc. And then what happened was they didn't have our commitment. So it was like, we're pushing ahead and we're getting thousands of drivers, but they're not building out the technology. So we was looking at other things, and we had to build an app. This was a web-based platform at that time. And then all of a sudden, it's very weird because it was very coincidental. We got a call from an American guy saying he wanted to speak to us because he'd heard about it. And he wanted to get into the taxi app business because he see it from a commercial view, that there's lots of customers out there and there's a supplier of drivers. And we caught up with them, and there was 3 of us. There was 3 of them. It was quite a funny story because you would think that we was the taxi drivers, and when we turned up to meet them, that we would be dressed casually and they would all be dressed in suits. But it was the exact opposite. We was all dressed in suits and they was dressed casually.
Really?
And there was 3 guys, and we hit off straight away. One was Ron Zigheib, Casper Wally, and Jay Bregman. All very charismatic, but they was like the financial side of it. They didn't have the expertise of knowing what drivers want, how are we going to build this. And within days, we'd sorted out a deal, and we said, okay, let's push forward. And we created Hailo. But instead of just going, here's a taxi app, what we did was we built a taxi app for drivers. And no one knows this. When you open it up, you see customers, you just see drivers. Our drivers had like a wonder tool where they could see events going on, see the traffic. They could use it as a credit card, all ideas that we come up with, because we said, what do drivers want? And it took us a year to launch from when we first met to actually launch an app. And we was working in the background, and there was other apps coming out like Get and I think Taxi App, etc. So we was doing all that, but we knew that we had the best products. So we knew we had the best products, and that's how it all started.
It's there's a few other things I was picking up on there, because, you know, we were saying that you know, you had to identify that you needed other people, and you got your 2 partners involved, and then you then went on to the bit of the story where, you know, you've got these techie guys, but you're really the enthusiastic ones. They weren't so much, and so that sort of demonstrates that the people you get involved have got to have the same passion, enthusiasm, and vision as you. You then mentioned that, you know, you've got these 3 sort of top guys that, you know, did become part of the team, the charismatic Americans. And you said it was sort of coincidental, but I always, I truly believe, I'm sure you do as well, that when you put enough focus on something and you're so passionate about it, sooner or later opportunities come, and you just don't know where. So, I mean, it's a bit like me with Your Body Means Business, you know, I was sort of talking about it the whole time, and it was sort of a bit of a part-time, but it was a real passion for me, you know, and any chance I got, I was talking about it to people. And out of the blue in lockdown, I get a call asking me to do a live workout to a global audience of thousands. And I never would have expected that. And it wasn't like, you would think it was coincidental, but, you know, I don't think it really is these things. I think when you're so passionate and you're talking about it, eventually the opportunities come to you. So I think that's another key part of it as well. Then you obviously, you know, you sort of worked out the finance deal and you put it together, but then you have these people hot on your heels all sort of putting together, you know, competitive things, competitive services. So did that mean you had to constantly keep innovating this original idea, or, you know, how did you stay ahead?
Um, I never run out of ideas. I can always innovate more ideas. No, I think it was more of a self-belief that if we're working this hard, someone's going to have to be working damn hard to
Yeah.
beat us. Now, obviously, money can make a difference. So if someone comes in with more money, you can buy people in and you can build products, etc. But we always had that belief in the back. And one thing, we was taxi drivers, and we always stuck to taxi drivers talk to taxi drivers. They get it. So we knew how to market to them. So we had like the best. We didn't have the best marketing. We didn't have the best marketing team come in. They used us.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We're going to tell you how to talk to drivers. We went, no, we're going to write the leaflets. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we was quite fortunate between the three of us. We all adopted certain positions that we could do well.
So again, bit of demarcation of responsibility. Do you ever read the Emyth?
No, I haven't. No.
It's a great book actually, and it talks about that. It actually sort of talks about even at a startup phase of identifying strengths in a team, but you've just done it sort of intuitively, like you said. I also think sometimes that, you know, you can have loads and loads of money behind projects, can't you? We've seen many sort of tech supposed giants, and then, you know, the bubble burst, they've got loads of money behind them, but it still doesn't take off because you still got to have that tenacity and resilience and passion to keep pushing through. And that, I think, is so critical. So you brought this idea to fruition, and you've done it with subsequently with others. I wanted to start off with Hailo because obviously people would have heard of it, but you've continued. It's not like it was a one-off. You've done that many times, haven't you?
Yeah. So obviously it was Taxi Light, then Hailo. I ended up staying on through My Taxi and Free Now, which it's called now. So I stayed within that. I think I look back and I think I took it on myself to stay there, to keep it running and keeping it as best as possible. But that probably stopped me coming up with more and more ideas, which I could have done. So it got to about 18 months ago, and then I moved on. And yeah, and then some of the ideas I had then, I've been trying to work on now. But it's probably COVID time, so it's quite hard to do. But yeah, so I have lots of ideas, and I'm working on probably about 4 or 5 different things at this moment in time. So
well, the way we met was you've got this amazing group called Start Up to Stand Up. Stand Up to Start Up is called. Yeah. Sorry, say again.
Start Up to Stand Up.
Start Up to Stand Up. Yeah.
That name, I don't know where it just off the top of my head. I said it one day.
I just think it SU is what I think.
Is that what you call it? Actually, there's quite a good story about the stand-up bit. I actually relate comedy very much to entrepreneurship. I'd have to go into it. I don't know how to explain it, but there's definitely, if you look at comedy and see the way it's written, the way it's performed, it's very entrepreneurial. But we'd have to go into that. And
so we'll have you on another time for mindset. Then people need a bit of a laugh. But I think so you've got this fabulous sort of group now where people sort of really are in startup mode. They can come and they can meet each other and use you as a sounding board and all of that. But I wondered, and I know you've got other sort of businesses of your own that you've sort of got at varying sort of stages, but I would love to talk a little bit for people that are listening. There'll be 2 categories, I think. There'll be people that have got a ton of ideas but can't bring them to fruition, or haven't done, or are frustrated, they don't have the time or the money or whatever it is. And then there'll be those people who they think, right, now's the moment, I want to start a business, but maybe I've lost my job, or I want to do something different. But I can't think of an idea. So should we talk about both categories really, and maybe get some tips for you? If we take the first type of person who's got the ideas, we've sort of touched on quite a bit of this now, but who's got the ideas, but they're sort of still thinking it's an idea and they're not quite sure. What could you give them, like 3 or 4 top tips to get going?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing around ideas, yes, coming up with ideas. And I think I talked earlier about how you implement that and bring in all them ideas to make it as best as possible. I think what a lot of people need to do, and they should do more, is research. I used to talk to quite a few startups, and they go, I've got this idea. And you'd go, boom, 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 boom. You only got to type it in Google. It's not that hard. Search. You go, is it similar to this? And they go, oh, I didn't even know that was there. So I think doing the research, and then that doesn't mean you have to stop. So I think as an idea person is do the research first and just make sure that it is a good idea. I think all ideas should also be, this goes back to a conversation I had with Jay, who was at Hailo. He was the CEO of Hailo and founder, is building a product that takes away hassle. Because I think we all live in that world where, I'll give you a story. We used to have a thing in our app that made an event if you drove past, and we used to have it at Harrods. Harrods is busy, it's not busy. But what we didn't realize that at 10 o'clock at night, there's no one at Harrods because it's shut.
Yeah.
It still works. And I remember a driver going, if I see that once more, I'm going to delete your app. Now, for someone to physically hold their hand down and delete an app that don't cost you nothing,
Yeah.
it just shows you our hassle and if you solve that problem. So I would go, if an idea solves that hassle, then you're onto a winner. If you can stop someone getting angry, even the better. And I suppose that's what the taxi app done was, I'm standing out in the rain, I'm putting my hand up, I can now press a button and it comes to me.
Yeah.
So, but then there is ideas, and I do have other ideas as well, where it's not solving a problem, but that doesn't mean it's not futuristic. And because otherwise Facebook would never have been invented, and Clubhouse, etc. So I think there's two parts to that. Yeah.
So basically making sure that it resolves a problem. One of the things that we cover in YBMB on the middle sort of section that we do is we go through a framework for sort of assessing a business idea, or even if it's not just a new idea, maybe they've got a business and they want to take it a different direction. And I produced it a few years ago, and I call it Jim's 4. It's a blueprint, and it asks that people to document growth goals, you know, what's innovative about it, if anything. And it, like you say, it could just be the cheapest, the fastest, a collaboration, it doesn't have to be brand new. Then the marketing, the sales, the financial model, the operations, you know, who their fan base is going to be, what culture they're going to try and build if they're building a business. And just by going through some of those things, people will suddenly, you know, they'll take it in a different direction, or they'll decide, oh, but like you said, actually it's not financially viable, that's why no one else has done it, or, you know, there'll be reasons like that. So you do have to do this research and this thinking, although sometimes you can overthink, I think. Anything else that sort of to move it forward, assuming that they've done the research, they want to get going, what else would you say?
One is that if you're an ideas person, don't let anyone put you down. If you know what I mean, there's going to be people out there, and there is definitely different types of people, and you're probably going to go on to the operational people afterwards. But there is ideas people, and people who don't have them ideas tend to try and put you off and say it's hard, don't do it. Actually, if it's hard, don't do it. Do it even more, because that means that someone else has been put off. So
I've always found that as absolute rocket fuel. You know, I really have. When I first started Your Body Means Business, I had exactly that, you know, because obviously being a more mature woman in a gym, working out, you know, all of a sudden you've got sort of established PTs going, what the hell is Angela Middleton doing? You know, and I just thought, do you know what? This is so different. This is not just a straightforward fitness offering. This is a holistic, you know, mind, body, business offering. But I love it when people say things like that, because I think it is it's absolute rocket fuel to get you going. So totally agree with you there. And experts are experts. If you start to come up with something that's they've not covered before, that sort of stops them being experts in a way, because now you've actually come up with something they don't know about. So experts actually sometimes are almost incentivized to stop you coming up with an idea. So I would be very careful about, you know, consultants and experts that you hire in. Obviously not always, but I totally agree with that point. That's for sure.
Also, I think a couple of things on that. One is, if you speak to investors, and I've spoke to a lot, and I've spoke to a lot of business people, and there's lots of blaggers out there who generally don't know anything apart from if they've read it. So if you come along and you said, if we had come along and said, we're going to build a taxi app, when we did, if there was no one else doing it, you probably would have found we got no investment, because no one's read, oh, that's a good idea. So I think you have to be really careful of listening to too many people of their opinions. I think you have a gut feeling as well if something is good. Yeah,
that is true. It's so true. I think we don't take enough notice of our gut, really, and the connection between our gut and our brain is definitely there. The science is behind it, but we And you sort of know, don't you, in your gut when you should do something or should stop doing something.
Yeah.
Because that's another question, but maybe not for today. But when do you sort of realize that it's not going to work and you sort of stop? Any comment on that quickly? Because there's a big other section I want to cover, but there are times like that, aren't there?
So when I say I have ideas, and I think like I've done all my ideas and they're all being implemented. No, there's loads of ideas where I went, I've got an idea and now I found out someone else was doing it, or I've got an idea but you ain't got time to do it. I don't know whether that means that they weren't good ideas and you couldn't have made them successful, but you can only do so many at a time. I did have a thinking of have so many ideas of doing something like this where you just tell people all your ideas and just say, let someone have it. Because I always relate an idea to like writing a song.
Mm.
If you wrote a song but no one ever heard it, then what's the point of it? So do you in the end just give it to someone else to say, you sing it, but at least I'm going to not get the credit for it, but at least I know that it's been implemented. So I will get to a stage soon where I'll go, I'm just going to let everyone have all these ideas and just go off.
Yeah, amazing. Probably should set something up, the businessideas.com or something like that. It probably exists as well.
Yeah, getting time to do it.
So getting so these people that want to do it, but they can't get any ideas. Either they come to your Gary Jackson businessideas.com eventually, but if not, there are ways, aren't there, to try to come up with something sensible. One of the things that I've done successfully with people before is I've said to them, okay, let's think about what you really love doing in your spare time that you don't have to get paid for, and it's not like you have to schedule it because you'd naturally default to go and do it. And then let's look at what you've got some skill and expertise in. I did it once with someone who his go-to thing when he wasn't working was he loved horse racing. His area of knowledge and expertise was insurance. So ended up being a bloodstock agent, insurance agent, because the two paired perfect. He now was doing what he loved in an area that he was experienced in. And that I've done that a few times, got people to pair those things before. So that's always a good way of doing it. And you can do that for jobs as well. If you're looking for, you don't want to start a business, you want a new job, and you pair these two things, like, I know I love drawing, but I'm good at marketing, and you could then start to look up art, and you can look at art galleries and they'll want a marketing and a salesperson or something like that. But what would you say for people who are really struggling and can't get some ideas? Any tips on that?
So one is, I think what you took on there was sometimes it's really good to be an expert in the field that you're going in. And I was with taxis.
Yeah.
I don't believe, and maybe this is me, but I think I call it like a method acting sort of thing. Is there's no reason why anyone can't learn as someone would think in that industry. That's the way I always think. So if I was going into horse racing, by the way, I like horse racing anyway, but if I was going into insurance, I would put myself in the place of someone in insurance. I think that can help as well. So there's no reason why you can't get into any market. You just got to imagine that you was part of that industry and what would that person feel and what is that, and research as well. Although I'm not a big reader, but I'm a good listener. So research doesn't have to be that you sit there and go on Google. Research, my whole day is research because I'm constantly listening. So everything we're talking about, I'm probably in the back of my mind now thinking about something that we've spoke about now, and it will come out later on because constantly listening to everything that everyone else says. I think it goes back to stand up and obviously about that, which is a call for startups, and we talk about problems, don't we? Problems and solutions. Not one day do I not come out of that and go, oh, I can relate that to something I'm doing in life or something I'm doing in work, and learn. And I think as we get older, we should be just learning. So that's the way.
I really agree. And I think be critical about all, because we've all got so much time, on our hands at the moment. I know we're all busy, but on the other hand, we're able to have, like, you can have the TV on if you want the whole time. You can have BBC or CNN or Sky News on the whole time if you want. I actually take all these apps off my phone and I don't look at it because I find that it's so negative and so distracting. And I often say that on this show that, you've got to stand guard in your mind and, and not allow all the ups and downs of the media throw at you into your mind. But I think to be really selective and go out and actively look for information is brilliant, because you never know what you're going to read, and it leads you down all sorts of paths. Because I saw something just the other day about a particular product that I was really interested in, and then I looked to see who'd actually written about it, and then I contacted the person, and the next thing we know, she's going to be doing an interview on some of the stuff that we do, and it's made me think of an idea and something to incorporate in the program. So I think selectively looking is really good. I'd still say be careful at the minute, because I think the media, obviously we know they get paid for, sets of eyes and for attention that they get. And naturally speaking, as human beings, we focus on the negative, and it can really then stop you pushing things forward, because people get scared and they get, worried about sort of taking a chance. And so they sort of stay, in their box, and they don't actually push forward, and they don't do these startups that we know can give people. So it's not just about financial gain, but it's about making you grow as a person, learning things, feeling stronger, meeting more people. I mean, there's so much to be said for it, isn't there, to actually make your idea come to fruition?
Yeah, I totally agree. One is I barely watch the news. I might watch it even at the night time. You get a bit of chance to watch a bit of a film or a new series, etc. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't think what I was.
Well, we were talking about media, weren't we, and going and researching and investigating information, and you were saying that that's a good thing to do, but I sort of veered off and was saying, but be careful about all the negativity. But you were talking about the positive stuff.
I think that's down to how you are as a person anyway. I always try and just be positive and say you're going to be the best at something, and just keep moving forward. Like, I've got kids, I've got 4 children, but trying to explain to them is, let's face it, kids moan all the time.
Yeah.
Don't moan, because does it make you happy? It's such it's such an easy question to just say to someone, if what you're doing, does it make you happy? If not, then don't do it. It's not a hard life. It's just easy and simple.
It really is. And people feel that they're stuck, don't they? They feel that, I'm doing this job and I've got to keep it because, but I sometimes, when people are in that situation, I do talk them through the worst case scenario, and they actually sometimes come out the other way going, well, the worst case scenario is, I'd have to make something happen. So maybe it wouldn't be that bad after all. And sometimes people are held back from bringing their idea into fruition because of, they're stuck. They feel they're stuck with, mortgage and all of their costs and overheads. But I mean, I definitely would say take the leap, even if you're doing it on, as a sort of, like they call a side hustle to start off with, because just, like, you've only got one life. You can't, I always think about it as, an egg timer. You can't turn it back up the other way. It's an egg timer and it's going. And if you've got an idea or you want to start something, I mean, definitely go for it. There's all sorts of programs. There's your program, there's my program. You've got help there, and go for it and do it, I would say.
Yeah. So I keep losing my train of thought. That's it. So one thing that you should always have, and I always go back to, like, depression, and I got told this quite a while ago, and I think since then depression just don't even exist, and you have to have something to look forward in the future. If you've got something to look forward into the future, there's your depression just completely goes. And then this is where I think of stuff while we're talking is, why shouldn't startups be that ignition to have you something to look forward to? So if you've got a startup, it's something that you could be working on. Yeah. And by the way, it's not easy. So when I say I did Taxi Light, I did Hailo, these are 24/7, and I'm sure I will think that I've been really attentive to my family and I'm always there. And they'll probably say, you've never watched a TV program in the last 10 years. Like now, you could watch a film and you go, I don't remember that film. but that's because I watched it and I'm not watching the film because all I'm thinking about is that entrepreneurial state. So
Mm,
you do have to work hard at it, and it does take up all your time,
mm.
not physically, but mentally. That's when I think you become a winner if you can do that.
Yeah. And I think maybe let's end on what you said about don't complain. I said it exactly Wednesday. I was doing a bit of a mindset show and I did some top tips. And one of the things was I said, don't complain, exactly like you said. You know, it doesn't make you feel any better. No one wants to hear it. And you said about what you say to your kids. You know, I remember what I used to say to mine was, what was the best thing that happened today? And they say, oh, no, nothing. And I say, no, but I want to know the best thing. You've got to tell me at least the best thing, even if they're all bad things. I want to know the best thing, and I've always carried that forward with me. And why would you not be positive? What's the point of being negative? You know, and you could start up. It might fail. Start another one. It might fail. Start another one. And I think that's a really good point you said. That then it gives you something. You know, excitement, hope. You know, people to meet, things to learn. Resilience, and you know, why not? And most of all, I suppose, impact to make, because when you actually produce something that really makes a difference and your clients like it, then it's not just about you anymore; it's about them, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that is one of the things. Everyone thinks that you do a startup to make money and come out of it with big money. It's not. It's actually making a difference.
Mm.
Doing something that when that person does press that button, that it makes him happy, not sad. And I think that's a lot. We've got a lot of stuff in the world where there are little annoyances, and I know that that's probably mainly your problem who's got the annoyance. But if we can take all that away from people, surely that would be a happier place.
Make life better, yeah. All right, Gary, thanks ever so much. Really so appreciate you coming on, and hopefully that's been useful to everybody. So just to tell you a little bit about the program, Your Body Means Business, we look at getting you fit physically, fit mentally, and then we give you a blueprint to create a business or drive a business forward. And if you're interested in that, there's a link below. And also, if you have a business and you know you need a sounding board, a group of like-minded individuals and people like Gary to help you, then his program, Startup to Stand Up, we'll put the link in there as well, and have a look at that. And I would highly recommend that too. So really lovely to talk to you, Gary. And I'll see you again, no doubt, at one of your meetings next week or the week after.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Angela.
All right, see you then.